G'day everyone, welcome to Marc and Car's Porsche Talk, the podcast where we talk about all things Porsche. If you love air-cooled, water-cooled, rear engine, front engine or even mid-engine, there'll be something here for you. But most importantly, we'll talk to the people who are passionate about Porsche. I'm your host, Marc, from the YouTube channel Marc and Cars. Thank you for taking the time to listen or watch, and feel free to share any input, suggestions and ideas through comments, reviews or message me. You'll find me on most social media platforms as Marc and Cars. This evening we've got a new sponsor for the podcast, Summon. Summon are a concierge car service that will assist you in selling your prestige car. You can sit back, relax, and their experienced team will sell your prestige car for you for the best price. Summon provides a streamlined way to sell safely and easily, minus the hassle of selling privately, plus a better price than selling to a dealer. Check him out at summon.com.au. Today's special guest is Tim from Summon, and we're going to talk to Tim about his background in Porsches and all about selling your car, whether it's a Porsche or any other prestige car. Thank you very much for joining us today, Tim.
My pleasure. Pleased to be here. Thanks, mate.
Tell us, Tim, you own a couple of Porsches, I understand?
I do. I love them, and it's very tempting being in this line of work to have more than two.
Yeah, I can imagine. Tell us, what are you driving around in?
I've got two cars. I've got more than two cars, but the Porsches are a 911 964, which I've had for about 5 or 6 years. It's a C2 manual, beautiful car, and in diamond blue metallic. And as I said, I've had that for about 6 years. I bought that with the intent that I had a sort of a vision and a dream to do the Targa Tasmania before really knowing anything about it. And
Sure.
A friend of mine had done it the year before with the Porsche group, with the tour. So I was talking to her about it, and she's very involved in the Porsche community, and she was raving about it and said it's amazing, and obviously you need to have a Porsche to take part. So
Sure.
I was like, okay, I started my journey of first, what is the right Porsche to do it in? And I actually decided I wanted to do it in a classic Porsche, and hired an advisor to help me with that, a guy called Gavin Little, who's in the Porsche community up in Sydney. And he helped me find and track down the perfect 911 964, and I purchased that, turned up to my first Targa Tasmania, and I thought that everyone else was going to be there in their classic cars, and I turned up and my car's the oldest by about 30 years. Everyone else is in their brand new GT3s.
Latest and greatest, yeah, sure.
GT4s, and here's me in my classic car, and everybody's going, "Oh, you're brave bringing that. Good on you." I'm like, well, what just happened? Felt like I've been punked. And it was absolutely an amazing event and so well run. It was brilliant fun, and thankfully it was dry the entire week. And if anyone's ever been to Tasmania, that's a small miracle when you turn up in your 964 and it's dry for a week.
Especially during the week of Targa Tasmania, and the fact that they only really have about 4 days of summer each year.
Exactly, in March, yeah. It's just as likely to snow as it is to be sunny, so I was pretty lucky. And so I had a brilliant week, but I did sort of think halfway, not more, probably first day, more like half an hour in, going, okay, I definitely brought a knife to a gunfight here. But fortunately, during the week, there's every type of Porsche is there. Yeah, there's probably 30 or 40 different cars. So you get a whole week to cross shop and decide what the car you want to bring next year.
Yeah, great.
And I decided a Cayman R was pretty much the perfect car for me and for Targas. And so after that event, I came back. Then I started researching, looking for Cayman Rs, which was hard because there's only 19 of them in Australia.
Yes.
Well, there was when they were imported anyway. I think it might be less now. And eventually managed to find the perfect Cayman R. So the Peridot Green, which is the launch colour. And I bought that, and that's been my Targa car since then. And I've done, I think, another 5 Targa events around Australia in that car, all of them with the Porsche group.
Fantastic.
I've kept the 964, and that's no longer used on track or in events, and the Cayman R is for going more quickly in.
Yeah, great. And tell me, when you did the Targa Tassie in the 964, as you can tell from the car behind me, I'm a bit of a sympathiser to the air-cooled cars. Did you drive down from Sydney to Melbourne, catch the ferry over to Tassie, do the whole thing?
I live in Melbourne, so I didn't have to do the drive down.
Sure.
But yeah, the car went across on the ferry, and I went across on the ferry as well. And which was the first one was the roughest trip I've been on. It was pretty shocking.
Sure.
But once you get there, it's all good. I do the events with my father as my co-driver / tag team driver, and he comes over from New Zealand, and we've done the Great Barrier Reef event. We've done the high country here in Victoria. We've done Tasmania a couple of times. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's a great way for us to spend time. Unfortunately, the travel bubble wasn't open with New Zealand quite in time this year, so I did it with a friend. But hopefully, next year it'll be open and he'll be back over.
Is he a Porsche enthusiast?
He is now. He wasn't before.
Oh, really? Okay, so he hasn't doesn't have something special in the garage he takes up to the Leadfoot Festival or anything in New Zealand?
He's an old Merc guy, so he's got
It's okay. Gull wings are old Mercs, and they're pretty nice, so they go okay.
Yeah, not quite that old.
Yeah, okay.
No, he's been into rallying. He used to rally from when he was young, and doing social rallying and MG Car Club and some sort of racing and things as well. So he's I've inherited the love of cars from him, but he has never owned a Porsche. So yeah, maybe one day. Well,
there's plenty of them in New Zealand. There's no doubt about that. There's an amazing Porsche community over there.
Yeah, I spent a bit of time researching how to get a car from there over to here. It's there's some good selection and some good prices over there, but
there is
pretty much impossible to get a car here.
Yeah,
other than getting my dad to buy one and then convincing him to move to Melbourne. So that's my long-term plan.
Yeah. Or I guess you might end up with a temporary address somewhere in New Zealand for a couple of years before to bring a car over.
I've looked at every avenue, don't worry.
I can imagine. And so you're now in the industry, obviously. You're assisting people in selling their cars. Tell me about the path to get to where you are here.
Yeah, sure. So just before buying the 964, and the path of being able to buy the 964 was I had a business, a digital agency, so a company that did website design, web development, online marketing, and we sold that business. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago, so just before getting the 964. And then I worked for that company for a few years, the company that acquired my business. Then after that, had some time on my hands and spent time with the kids and doing car stuff and traveling around doing these Porsche events, and really wanted to start a new business with my business partner from the old business, who's also my best friend. And we were sort of going mountain biking, going skiing and hanging out together and deciding, what are we going to do next? And I really wanted to do something to do with cars, but I also wanted to do something that I thought would be a good business and solve a real problem for people. And then, in the course of sort of talking a bit through ideas, we had another really good friend of ours who was trying to sell a car of his own. And we were just sort of talking through the challenge of selling a car privately or in any way, really, and just how there's not really a good option, basically. Or in the past, you had 2 options for selling your car, and both of them, frankly, are pretty bad options. One of them is, not all the time, but a lot of the time. So one is selling the car yourself privately is normally a real pain. It takes, a month at least, or is pretty typical, sometimes up to a couple of months. If you're a busy professional, it's just not something you want to deal with. You get a lot of time wasters, and not many people look forward to selling a car privately. And so that's reluctant. And the other option is to take the car to a wholesaler or a dealer, whether it's as a trade-in or just as a sale. And that's super convenient, but you lose a lot of value in the car. And it's not because the dealers are ripping anyone off or making a huge amount of profit. It's just that there's a lot of kinks in that chain. There's, the dealer has the car, and then they might sell it to a wholesaler, and the wholesaler sells it to a dealer. Mm-hmm. The dealer sells it to a customer. And there's fees and profit and expenses and taxes all the way through. And so you end up with not a great price for the car.
Sure.
So we were sort of saying, why isn't there another way to do this? And what potentially could be another way of solving that problem? And we're talking to our friend, and he had paid his brother to sell a car for himself. I had paid someone else to sell a car for me. And we're going, so there's this kind of cottage industry of people who don't want to do it themselves, and they just get a friend or a relative to sell the car privately, someone who's got more inclination or more time on their hands. And just thought, why is there not a business in that? There are people who professionally help you to buy cars, so brokers, but there's no people who professionally help you to sell a car, which is like an agent or a broker, or not even really a good term for it. And then it sort of set us down that path of going, well, how would we solve that problem using our background in design and technology and marketing to make that industry not just a professional industry, and not just do it well, but do it with really as optimal as it could be, providing as good a customer experience for the people and getting as good a price for the car as possible, and making it scalable so it could be a really great business.
Is it?
Is it scalable? Is it a great business? Yeah, both of those things.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so things are going well?
Yeah, fantastic. We just celebrated signing up our 100th customer a couple of weeks ago, and I think we're at probably about 110 or 120 now.
Amazing.
We started almost exactly a year ago, actually, so July 1 last year. And after a bit of sort of experimentation and testing the idea out with friends and family to start with, things have been accelerating, and we're learning, building tools and software that help us do valuations of the car, and building a network of photographers, and building up our team of concierges around Australia who are the boots on the ground and doing the work with the cars and with the customers, and also working out the value proposition and sort of pragmatic things like, what's the right amount to charge, and what are the right things to include, and what are the things that we don't need to do that people don't find useful, and what are the things that we need to, the biggest problems that we have to solve, the things that are most important to the car owners when they're looking to sell it. And so, there's plenty of a huge amount of learning in the last year, and it's not perfect. We're actually constantly iterating and experimenting and trying new things out, which is the thing that actually, my two passions, one is design and technology and experimenting and trying new things, and the other is cars. So, combining those two things is a pretty fun business.
Yeah, good to hear. Now, look, in the last few years, there's been, the combination of, ballooning values of Porsche cars, which, is the interest of the listeners or viewers here of this particular podcast, combined with ultimately the online presence, online auction houses where there's very little responsibility taken by the sellers, that's not true. Very little responsibility taken by the auction house themselves to find a buyer for a car. Now, there are various ways. I'm certainly not expecting you to justify one method over the other in this conversation. There are multiple ways it'll appeal to different people. There's, arguments for and against multiple ways to buy and sell cars. But I can imagine the valuation part of it is really the fundamental grounding of what it is you guys are doing, to give people a realistic understanding of the sell price of what their car is worth, regardless of what, asking prices in the market are, so that you actually get good outcomes that meet expectations. Would I be right in thinking that?
That's certainly step one. That's the first thing that we do for any prospective customer is we do a valuation for the car. And if anyone on the podcast has a car that they're thinking about selling and wants a free valuation, then just go to the website, summon.com.au, put in a request, and we'll happily do that. That's actually been probably our biggest development effort from a technology point of view in the last year, is our valuation and reporting the data in the database, and also the reporting tools on top of that. And we are constantly improving that over time as well. But it's pretty good, and it's super efficient for us to use.
Yep.
The only challenge with that is if there's not much volume for a particular car, then the valuation can only be based on the data that we have. Cool. And so if you think about, like I was talking about Caymanars, for example, there's 2 maybe of those sold every year. So to do a valuation of that is anybody is going to struggle with any kind of amount of data. Everyone has the same data.
Sample size is ridiculously small and questionable, even if you come up with a number.
Exactly. So, and we say no all the time, politely say, look, we just can't do a good valuation for this car if there's not enough data, and we'll be honest about that. We won't. It's not in anyone's best interest for us to inflate, the value of the car. We want to be realistic, and we put ourselves on the hook for achieving that result. So we provide a money back guarantee, which is based on the valuation we provide. So if we say the car's worth 200 to 220 or 200 to 210 or whatever the range might be, if we can't sell the car within that range, we give the listing fee back to the customer. So we're happy to kind of place our own bets on the quality of the valuation.
It's fantastic. That's fantastic to know for a potential customer that, you guys back yourselves that hard. That's fantastic,
Yeah, and so that for that reason, if we can't do a valuation, we won't. But then it's a discussion with the owner about the data that we do have and talking about what their aspiration might be. And if it's unrealistic, then we'll, say, look, actually, I had that conversation today with a classic 911 owner. I'm very disappointed because absolutely mint car, like it's a real collector's car, and it wasn't the owner. We valued the car, and a good example, it was a 997, and it was a good example of a car that's gone up in value a huge amount in the last year. And I said, look, it could be up to 140, 150. This time 12 months ago, it was probably 100 to 110.
Sure.
And he was like, oh, it's probably worth more for me just to keep it. I think I'll just hold on to it. So, okay, well, that's fine. So he was like, oh, if I could sell it for 200, then I will. And I was
as would every 997 owner, yes.
Yeah, and I was saying, look, I just don't think that's going to be possible. So if you'd rather hold on to it, then you should drive it, enjoy it. It's going to continue to go up in value, not at the same rate as it has, I don't think, but you're not going to go backwards from here. I'd be very surprised. So he's going to keep the car and enjoy it, which is fantastic. And to your point before about auction houses and other methods of selling, this business is, we have our own business and we, would like people to sign up with us, but it's actually just whatever's the best result for the customer. If this gentleman wants to keep and enjoy driving the car, then good on him. That's fantastic. And if now that there are a few different options for him to sell that car, he won't. He'll keep it. But being able to auction the car or sell it with someone and having a few other alternatives that he didn't have available to him, even maybe a year ago is great. It's good for the market and it's good for the customer.
Yeah, it is for sure. As a I'm potentially in the market for a 911 myself, right? As a buyer and looking.
What are you looking for, Marc?
Look, I'd like a good 3-litre G series car, or replace my daily with a nice manual 997 C4S. But finding that both those cars are of similar value in today's market, I'm finding. So there's a big difference between asking price and what I understand would be selling prices. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is when I've inquired with owners, you mentioned earlier that it's a challenge to sell a car privately. So whenever I've approached a private seller about selling their car of either of those types of cars, and they are very different owners. A person who owns a manual C4S is a very different personality typically to the G Series 3-litre car, a good G Series car. But in both cases lately, when I say lately, I'm talking the last month or two, just getting people to come back to me when I drop them messages or phone them or anything, it's just, I question the motivation behind a lot of sellers, whether or not they actually really want to sell or if they're just sort of throwing their car out there to see if there's interest at their, what to me at the moment, and as a long-term Porsche enthusiast, seeing the recent spike in prices, I just wonder whether or not they're just, having a go. It would be the best way for me to describe what's going on in the market. Now, clearly, through your valuation data, you'd have a better insight as to what actual sell prices are like through the various platforms and data you'd have available to you at your end of the industry. So I'd be pretty curious to know, what's in the two types of cars I'm looking at, which are very broad data sets. What's the difference between ask price and sell price? Is it a 5%? Is it a 10%? 20%? What are you finding as an average?
So 4 to 5% is the average of cars that sell.
Yes, fair. Yep.
So that's
between asking price and sell price you're talking about there, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep. That's setting aside cars that are fishing, people, and it might be that,
there's a lot of that going on at the moment.
For those models, I'm not sure, but there's a couple other models I've been watching closely where there's absolutely people in the market going, well, I'll sell the car for this price. But that doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't then respond to a genuine inquiry from Marc. I'm assuming you're not like saying, hi, I'll offer whatever list price minus 50,000 is.
Yeah, I'm not lowballing. I actually haven't even thrown numbers out there. All I want to do is talk to someone about their car. You know what I mean?
So if they're fishing, they should probably be replying to, to the fish.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be the case, but yeah, we do track through our sales. So the average difference between the final listing price, which might not be the same as the first listing price, and the sale price is 4 to 5%. And we track that, and that's our average. And someone in the industry who, I won't say where they work, but someone who has way more data than us said, unprompted, exactly the same figure the other day. I was like, oh, good. Okay. Well, our average is probably about the industry average.
Yeah. I say it's good to know. Good to know. Yep. And yeah, because, clearly
other people would just pay full price. It would really take the hassle out for the buyer, the seller. Everyone would be a lot happier if it was just, that is the sticker price. I'll sell it to you for that price.
Yeah. That's. I think that's called retail.
Exactly. I'm not sure why we don't just move to that.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. Yeah. Look, I don't know either. Look, I don't think they're having any trouble getting the asking price on the GT3s that have just been released.
Exactly.
How are you finding the GT cars Porsche GT cars in the movement in the market at the moment? Outside of the 991, it feels like a lot of them have either not selling at all or they've just not on the market at all.
Yeah, I'm not too close to it. We haven't had a huge number of GT cars. Actually, I'm pretty sure, setting aside GTSs, we've had a few Macan GTSs, but in terms of 911 GT cars, we've had one which we just listed and sold recently, and so not a very good sample size. So I'm not really sure. It's something I could look up in the database, but I don't have a good finger on the pulse for that.
Yeah, sure. And of the prestige brands, what are you finding is the brand that has been quite successful for your product with Summon? Is there a brand in particular that's gone really well?
Yeah, it's Porsche, funnily enough, and I don't know if that's a bias, which it's entirely possible that it is, or whether it's it shouldn't be based on volume. Like we've got a little business model around, and as part of the business modeling, we did research into all the prestige car brands and what the volume of cars that are. So we focus on cars valued at over 50,000. Yeah. Okay. So these are all used cars, and basically went, okay, well, how many Audis, BMWs, what percentage of Audis that go on the market each year are over 50,000, and of BMWs and Mercedes, and sure. And so Mercedes was number 1, BMW number 2, Audi number 3, and Porsche was number 4. But we've sold way more Porsches than any of those brands by quite a high margin. But we are also more active in the Porsche community between myself and so Gavin Little, who I mentioned before. I first met 5-6 years ago, who helped me to find and buy my first Porsche, the 964. He now works for us at Summon. He's our GM of operations. Yep, started out in our concierge team as a contractor, and we hired him full-time in November last year. And he oversees all of the concierge team in all the different areas that we operate. So he's fantastic. So kind of my Porsche journey has come full circle in a way. And
sounds like
working with Gav. So he's involved in the Porsche community up in Sydney, and we've just started working with a concierge Tula in Queensland, and she's involved in the Porsche community in Queensland. And so through that and sponsorship of the Porsche Forum, I think those are the kind of things that I guess reinforce our bias. And so I'm not surprised that we've had more Porsches than Audis.
Yep, sure. And speaking of the Porsche Forum, I noticed a post from you recently regarding GDSs.
Yeah. So
Tell us about your story about GDSs.
this is really, I don't know if I had told you, but this is personal research for me. This is me looking for what my next car will be. And I've narrowed it down to if anyone's listening and has one to sell, then send me a message. Either a 991.1 GTS or a 911 GTS or a Carrera T 991.2. So I've narrowed it down to those two. But as part of that, I was like, oh, well, what are the price movements of these and how does it compare to a 991.2 GTS, for example? And did a bit of, like, oh, well, I can do this. I have all the data. I have reporting tools. I can, do a deep dive. And unfortunately for me, being a potential buyer of these cars, these have also gone up in value tremendously in the last year. Good on the people who already have them, and I should have bought one a year ago.
Shouldn't we all have? The interesting that you're comparing those two cars, one being a turbocharged, one being naturally aspirated. Why? Like, I find it like one's pretty much very much a luxury tourer with a lot of power, and the other one is a lightweight, much more nimble product. They're quite different cars, Even, look, sure, they're both 911s, but to drive, if you got out of one and drove the other, the difference would be quite a lot. So it's interesting you look in the market for one of either of these cars.
Yeah, they're both a very similar price. So they're like basically within that same sort of 200 to 250 price bracket. And the appeal of the Carrera T is, I feel like it, and I haven't driven one yet, so I need to find one local to drive. And that's caveat is I haven't driven either of these cars yet. I've only admired them from close up. But the Carrera T, I think, will be not similar in terms of driving feel, but it's similar ethos to the Cayman R that I have, and that it's the Cayman R, for those that don't know, it was sort of released in 2011, and it's the lightweight version of the Cayman S. And by lightweight, it's not like they stripped everything out and rebuilt it in carbon fiber like a Singer. It's I think they reduced like 20 or 30 kgs by not having door handles and having pull tabs and lighter weight doors.
I think there's also a power increase of a similar about 20 horsepower or something as well, wasn't there, over the Cayman S?
I don't think it's that much. I think it's less. I don't know off the top of my head. I can't remember, but it's a small amount of horsepower increase.
The same era was about 25 horsepower more, and I'm making the assumption it would have had the same engine,
Okay, yeah, it could be. So it's slight power increase, more slight aero changes. So it's got a fixed wing and slightly different front splitter, and then lighter weight. So and lower suspension as well than a Cayman S. So it's like, more sporty, go faster version of the Cayman S, but not, a huge... Not
GT4.
Not a GT4, no, exactly. And in the same way, the Carrera T, it's not a GT3, but it's had the whip turned up. And I think that would be a really fun car to do events in and do the Targa events and things like that. And so that appeals to me for, the lightweightness, and just I've seen, watched lots of reviews of it, and I think the ethos of it sort of appeals to me as well. And I think it's debatable. There's a lot of people who are cynical about the Carrera T. And the GTS there's a few people who bring those to the Targa events and Porsche events, and I've just always loved them and thought they look brilliant. And the .1 being the naturally aspirated is probably more appealing to me, and also slightly lower price bracket than the .2s. So sort of between those two, I'd be going for the .1.
Look, I've got to tell you, I'm a massive sympathiser to the GTS. For me, if I was to go into the market and they, because I wouldn't buy a GT car, I'm a family guy. I do want 4 seats, and if the touring came with 4 seats, I'd put my name down for one, but they don't. And so the GTS. Are you
sure? Does the new one? Does the new
doesn't.
one?
I've already I'm in the fortunate position where I've been allocated a vehicle that I'm not going to buy by Porsche.
GT3 Touring.
Yeah, but I'm not going to take it
because of those back seats. Yeah, I was wondering. There's been some speculation about whether they would or wouldn't. So that's
they don't. No, sadly.
That would be my dream car, by the way. A touring with back seats, absolutely perfect, except for the price tag.
Sure. But when you're window shopping, you may as well window shop for what you want. And also the GDS in a manual. I've seen GDS Targas in manual. I haven't seen any GDS Coupes in manual here in Perth or anywhere else I've travelled around. I know that they're available in Europe. I just haven't seen any here in Australia. Inevitably there'll be some, but a few of them here in Australia, but I haven't tripped over them. But it does appeal to me a lot, the GDS. So I just like I love the center locking wheel.
Oh yeah.
For me, I was stunned they didn't put them on the Carrera T. I just think it would have just really taken it to that next level, only for aesthetic, but I also believe with the small volume of both those model cars, I actually think the GDS is going to age better than the Carrera T.
I'm not sure. And, obviously no one can be sure of these things, but the Carrera Ts, they were sitting around 200 to 210 a year ago when I was looking at them last time, and I wasn't ready to go then and wasn't looking at them seriously. And now they're 240, 250. And that's now the new watermark. Whether that comes down over time, sure. There's such a low quantity of them came into Australia anyway. The Carrera T, if I recall, it's sub 20 or something, isn't it? Is that? What is the number? I have it written down. It's around about that. It's it's less than 30. I think it's mid 20s off the top of my head, but it's around that. But at one point when I was looking at them about a year ago, there was at any one time 5 or 6 or 7 of them on the market.
Oh, okay. Sure.
There was no shortage of them, and now it seems like they've become maybe more collectible, or certainly less of them on the market, and those that are on the market are for a much higher price. So whether they've just been swept along in general appreciation, or whether it's they've found their sweet spot and now people have decided they love them, I don't know.
I'm sure like every other GDS enthusiast, you're conscious of that one that's coming up at Pickles next week.
I haven't seen that, no.
Those 991.1 lava orange, black interior, GDS.
Oh, really?
Yes. Better write that down.
Anything wrong with it, or is it okay?
No, look, I think 2 of the rims have been curbed. It's had a touch on the front left quarter, not front left bumper, sorry. But you can't see it in the photos, so it's probably just a scuff mark or something, knowing those guys. But it's in the market, so if you're in the market.
I've made a note. I'll check that out.
Yeah. Look, probably not the most desirable colourway, but there are plenty of GT3 RS in lava orange getting around.
Yeah, I've never seen, I don't think I've ever seen anything other than a GT3 RS in that colour.
I wonder if it's a PDS then or something like that.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah, sure.
It almost certainly would be. That's actually the thing that puts me off the 991.1 GTSs is I've never seen one in a really interesting colour. By nice is not the right word.
Not nice to you. I understand. Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, so they tend to be white, silver, or black, or Guards red every now and then.
I've only ever seen him in carmine red. I've only ever seen.
Carmine red, not Guards red. And they're all nice colours.
Which I don't mind as a colour. Yes.
That would be my pick of those colours. The carmine red that's a nice colour. But so, for example, the 991.2s had some much more interesting colours than the GTSs. There's one for sale up in Sydney, which is just an absolutely stunning. I don't know the name of the colour, but it's a deep blue. If that car was available, if that car was in a .1, that I'd be all over it. But I haven't seen any interesting colours or really seen paint to sample colours in the 991.1. So I'll check that out, and hopefully I'm not bidding against you. I don't know if I'm quite orange.
I can assure you won't be. I'm not in the market.
I'm not sure if I'm quite ready for lava orange, but has it got black wheels? I'm sure it does. The black interlocking wheels.
I can't remember they are black. Yes. Yeah. I was just trying to remember whether they're black or silver. I couldn't remember, but yeah, I'm almost certain they're black. Yeah. Probably black with a diamond cut on them, actually. Anyway, look, I'm sure there'll be listeners who will be tapping away if the car is still on the market.
Oh, yeah, now everyone's going to, that's great. Let's talk about this on the podcast. Thanks, Mark.
I tell you, I won't publish this until that auction's done.
Thank you. Yeah, do me a favour.
And then if you're no good with lava orange,
and then you can bring me back for an edit, and I'll film me driving away my lava orange GTX.
Yeah, that sounds a great idea. Yeah, I think it's in Sydney. I think the car's in Sydney, if I remember.
That's okay.
Yep. Anyway,
can work with that.
But anyway, nice to hear that people are still sniffing around, yourself obviously, on those types of cars, and by enthusiasts, because I'm finding more and more of the later model Porsches, and look, let's face it, 991s, so many 991, 911s have been built,
Yeah.
I think statistically I heard that 1 in 5 911s ever built is a 991. That's how many 991s were built, which doesn't seem to be helping in their which doesn't seem to be affecting their resale, because getting into the 991 market it's not cheap yet. It's not like there's a critical mass that there's so many of them that no one wants them.
No, not at all. I mean, some of the models are really rare, or certainly don't come up for sale very often. And I wonder, like, a lot of those are still going to be with their first owners.
They came out in 2012. That's getting on. Not the
dot ones, but a bunch of the dot twos will still be under new car warranty with the first owners. You
just don't see dot twos come up across any of the models very often, just in the conventional car selling spaces. Well, I don't anyway. It's
I mean, I'm expecting that some GT3s will be coming on soon with the new GT3. As deliveries start coming through the 992 GT3.
I'm sure that 6 months
people will be. I know a bunch of people with the previous versions who are on the list for the new version, and most of them are not going to keep both cars in the garage. They'll sell one.
And why wouldn't you replace it? Because the old one was so terrible.
Shocking car. The market will be flooded. Predicting it here, there'll be a glut of 991 GT3s, which we can snap up for a bargain.
Like that. So you've clearly spoken about the cars on the horizon. Car on the horizon that will replace the Cayman R. You'll keep the 964. Was that the intent, or the other way?
Look,
we're going to get rid of both of them.
I'm not sure. I've been weighing this up for a couple of months, and I've decided I'm going to wait until I find the ideal next car, and then I work out what's the path to that car. It'll definitely involve selling one of them and maybe two of them to create garage space. But
sure,
I have a bad habit of asking my friends for their advice, and it's very contradictory, and it mostly involves not selling the 964.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, look, I did a video on a 964 Carrera RS tribute car very recently, which has been done to the level that it's actually probably better than a 964 Carrera RS. It's got full 3.8, fully bombed motor in it. It's done all the suspension. It's an amazing motor car, beautiful drive, and presented very nicely. And whilst I've always been a sympathiser to the 964, I've always thought if I had my choice of air-cooled car, money, no object, I'd get a 993. But after driving this, I was, very much open to the idea of the right 964 if it pops up. So before you go and put it on your own website, give me a call.
Well, there's a new contender, a new problem for you. There's a Singer opening up here.
Yeah, that's not a problem for me.
No, but all the 964s are going to become donor cars.
Oh, they've started on the 993s now. So it's
right, okay. Well,
because they're running out of 964 bodies.
Those are just a dime a dozen, so no problem at all.
Well, I think in the States at the moment they're out to 7 years on your waiting list.
Wait list, is that right?
Yeah, and that's with a 80% deposit.
Well, they're giving Elon Musk a run for his money.
I'm no genius here, but I reckon that's not bad business. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's the case, why would you bother opening up in Australia and starting to have Australian customers come in and saying, "We would love to sell you that Problem is there are no 964 donor cars, and you have to wait 7 years when you find one.
Well, you can't imagine they're going to build them here, right? They'd have to be coming out of the States, like as right-hand drive modified.
I haven't heard anything, but there'd be almost zero chance that they can build them here. I don't know how they would do that.
I'm making an assumption here, by the way.
I'm making an assumption as well, but there seems to be a lot of custom equipment involved. It's a pretty big enterprise set. And quality control being what it is with Singer.
Yeah, the team involved.
To transport that to here for a small market, I'm not sure why they would do that.
I understand there's a few of them in New Zealand at the moment.
There's a what, sorry?
I think there's 3 Singers in New Zealand at the moment.
I saw a photo like yesterday on Instagram of a New Zealand commission, which was in olive green, which was kind of a weird colour, but still looked beautiful, obviously. It was a New Zealand delivery car. It was there on the ground, and I didn't actually realise that they had already been landing cars there and had the compliance and things like that sorted out. I think it's easier in New Zealand than it is landing cars, importing cars. Well, whether this is classed as an import or, exactly that kind of stuff, they're obviously going to have worked out for Australia. But for New Zealand, it would have been much, much easier. I
think, look, the path to getting a car delivered to Australia, the simple way would be for you to send your 964 over for them to modify and bring it back again.
I think that's what they'll be doing.
That'd be a no-brainer.
I think that's the only way that they'll be able to do it, because you can't import an American car into Australia. It's.
They're old enough now. They're over 25 years. The 964 is over 25 years. You'd be able to bring that car in. Okay. Maybe I'll be corrected on that. Yeah. So I think, because of its age, I think it'll be okay as long as it's still registered. But the modification part of it,
and the compliance, I think I'm assuming that I'd love to find out more about it. So if anyone knows, put it in the. Are there comments below? Do we do that?
There are. Yes.
Put in the comments below if you actually know what you're talking about, because Marc and I clearly are just guessing here.
Yeah, and let's not let fact or truth get in the way of this conversation.
Absolutely no. I didn't know we were talking about Singer. I could have done more research, but I don't think anybody really knows.
Let's talk about Gunther Works now. Yeah. Okay. Assumption is you have a 964 here, you ship it over to the US, and they do the modifications and they ship it back as your car now with some other bits. In a new colour. Yeah, okay.
I just sent it over for an olive green paint job.
Right, yeah, okay. I can imagine. But I do know that listening to Chris Harris's podcasts semi-regularly, he has been waiting some time for his Singer, and he is tight with the guys at Singer, but he's not given any priority. So I remember him complaining about the waiting time, and I think he's still 3 years out from his car getting built. And if you're,
it's quite possible that a few people have. So it's Sagami who are doing, a partnership with Singer, that they started taking orders 3 or 4 years ago.
They could very know. Yeah, and the first cars could be ready to get land or something.
We'll put some deposits down, work it out, and then when the list is further progressed, we'll actually announce it. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, you might be right. And let's face it, dealers love taking a deposit.
Especially 80%.
Anyway, so look, it's been fascinating talking to you about Porsches and the market and the business that you offer with your, with Summon. And, we should catch up again soon and see how things are progressing with the business as it's developing in the Australian market. I'm fascinated just the fact that you've essentially created something, a new business out of nothing. I love that sort of stuff in any industry, especially if it involves, cars, and I like cars. So it's been great spending time with you this evening. I really appreciate it, Tim. So
thanks very much, Marc. Appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. And if anyone's looking to sell their car, Tim's details are below, summon.com.au. Check him out. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Marc.
Bye-bye.